So even with spring games in full swing, we did get another update on the Mets DH situation this week. According to John Heyman of the New York Post, the Mets, along with the Angels and Rangers, are still in the mix for free agent DH JD Martinez. Heyman explained that the 36-year-old apparently turned down a one-year contract in the $15 million range from the Giants due to his unwillingness to play in a pitcher's ballpark, among other reasons. With mixed spring performances from internal options such as Mark Vientos, DJ Stewart, Luke Voigt, and G-Man Choi, Mets are expected to remain opportunistic on remaining available free agents if the prices are reasonable. Martinez is reportedly seeking a 2-year deal on the free agent market, represented by baseball's high roller, Scott Boras. We've talked about JD Martinez before, I think. Obviously, we can mix in the whole situation with Vientos. I obviously want to talk about him and how he's been doing in spring.
Yeah, I mean,
Pretty
I've
late.
been
It's pretty late to me.
yeah, it is. It's very late. I mean, I've been of the mindset that they should have added some kind of external bat. We've talked about before a lot of different options that was available: Teoscar Hernandez, Jorge Soler, Jock Peterson, Hunter Renfroe, and now you have a guy like JD Martinez who's still out there. The Mets have made it clear that they want Mark Vientos to be that guy. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. I've been of the belief that if that's how they feel, they should have had him play more, but different GM that was forced to play guys and whatever. So they're in a tough spot, and I think for JD Martinez, I wouldn't want to give him a 2-year deal. I think that'd be my only reason I wouldn't do it. But we just had a really long conversation about the lineup a couple minutes ago, and a lot of things would just flow a lot better if you feel like you had another proven power bat that's done it year in, year out. And it wouldn't be so top heavy because it's like, okay, well, at least I have JD Martinez. It's like maybe I could put, I don't know,
What
McNeil
about
in front of.
G-Man Choi protecting a lineup,
Oh,
though?
there you go. But it's like, oh, I could have maybe McNeil back for JD Martinez, and he could bring in him or whatever. You just have a lot more flexibility. If you had one more guy that you knew you could count on, where Rhino Vientos is still an unknown. I mean, even if you had a great spring training, still an unknown until you do it during the regular season for a long period of time. It doesn't really mean anything. So I think with a guy like JD Martinez, when he's age 36, you don't want to give a 2-year deal. If the Mets were going to actually do it and be like, you know what, let's just get it done and have some kind of bat on this team, I wouldn't mind a 1 year with an incentive based second year. I mean, it's like, okay, if you hit these thresholds for me, you hit X amount of games and X amount of production, sure, you could have another year because that means that your body didn't break down and you didn't just have because it's going to happen with any player. Once they hit that high 30s, there's that steep, just that quick regression. I mean, it's just like bam, like they're washed, it's over. Like you see, like when it happens, where it's like, okay, this guy is done. There's nothing else that's left for him. JD Martinez hasn't had that yet. And what I always go back to is the fact that he was better in 2023 than he was in 2022. Now, if it was the reverse, I would be a little more skeptical, like, oh, this guy, is starting to decline a little bit, not as good as he's been. The fact that he had a bit of a bounce back year and was still over 30 home runs, where, when the Mets were actually competing and he was one of the guys we were looking at the trade deadline, but like, I don't know, man, Martinez back is pretty messed up. He had no power in the second half of that season. But then the next year, all of a sudden, his power is back. So I think the fact that he's coming off of a really solid year, I've always been on board with bringing him in just because I felt that he would just make this lineup feel a little deeper and just like one more power bat that you fear compared to what they have now. Because just the way I look at it is that with the struggles that the Mets had offensively this past season, for them to just run back the same exact group of guys and expecting a different outcome, I think is really risky. You're counting a lot on Vientos and Beatty, which I don't totally agree with because they've had, not a huge sample size, but they've had a sample size. They've had a opportunity, and especially Beatty has not made the most of it. So I've been on board for bringing him in. They're not going to. I think even if he does go to 1 year, they're still not going to do it because, again, I feel like if that was the case, you would have got Jock Pearson or all these other guys we mentioned. So I really don't see the Mets getting him. I still wish they would because I still don't trust Vientos to give me what JD Martinez does. If I want to actually compete, like, okay, Alonso's in his walk year. I still have Senga. I don't know how much longer. Maybe he opts out or whatever. A lot of things could happen. Edwin Diaz is healthy this year. So I would want to maximize my guys' primes. If I'm the Mets, I have Nimmo under contract and things like that. But they're really counting on Vientos. So I mean, that's the approach they've had. It's not going to change in the middle of March. They had all off season. So I mean, ultimately, I just don't think they're going to get him.
Yeah, I think it's more of just price hunting right now because of the situation that they're in with the luxury tax. Of course, I think that's kind of what they're being more patient of, but they had all off season to do it and they didn't do it. So, I mean, it is true. Expected home runs last year, what I just said about him rejecting that offer from San Francisco, the lowest in San Francisco, 24. As for the Mets ballpark, he had 33 home runs last year, would have had 39. It has a little bit of a boost to it. Obviously, the projections are not the greatest because he's going into a 37-year-old season. It definitely gives you a little bit of a boost into Citi Field, of course. And then also we saw him working with Driveline this offseason. So, who knows? Because they give the extra steroid boost to everybody.
JD Martinez was unbelievable last season. From his exit velocities to his barrel rates to his sweet spot percentage to his batted ball data. It was an incredible season. I personally think he's a bit too old. He's entering his age 37 season. Yeah. And if we're having a transition year, I think that seeing what Mark Vientos has is the smartest way to go. That being said, that doesn't mean if he's struggling, we don't have to make an upgrade at the trade deadline, but you got to give him a shot to play every day, to get 3 to 4 plate appearances every day. So I'm just going to stick with Vientos. And with the luxury tax penalties, this would be an incredibly expensive investment regardless, even if it's a 1-year deal for a guy this old. I think it's a pretty big risk, contrary to what a lot of people have been saying is that, this would be a risk-free move. I personally think this has a lot of risk, especially with the kind of players you would be benching because of this.
Yeah, I also, the luxury tax penalty, I think is it plus 110%? Something like that, 112%, something like that. So let's say that you give him $11 million for this year. You're probably looking at, $26 million in luxury tax, possibly something like that, $27 million. I don't know if I did that math correctly. That was just off the top of my head. But the best that I would give to him is not something that he would take. I'd probably be going with the concern of the injury and the age, of course, because I need some insurance with that. There is injury concern with JD Martinez, especially in his older age. Of course, he had the neck thing, the back thing, whatever. I'd probably go with 1 year, $9 million, and then the next year you get $12 million if you give me 400 plate appearances, because obviously that has to have a health factor in it. But the problem is, if JD Martinez gets 400 plate appearances, that's taking away pretty much all the playing time from Mark Vientos. So that's kind of how you have to look at it. And I get it. They want to get somebody for Alonso, but they should have made this decision months ago. I think that at this point they've established they believe in Mark Vientos. They're going to see what he does, address it at the trade deadline if it doesn't work out. And that's kind of how they're looking at it. I think that there's a way to do it, obviously. I think that they're going back on the word with Mark Vientos if they get somebody like JD Martinez, which could help the lineup, definitely. But I think that they've already established they want to give the playing time to young players, and rightfully so. It makes the lineup better. It would be a good addition, but I just don't know how that fits into that equation. I think that you can pretty much skip DJ Stewart out of it, obviously, with a guy like JD Martinez, Luke Voigt, Ji-Man Choi, AAA depth, whatever. But in terms of Vientos and how he's only here pretty much for his bat, even though he probably could play first base, can't play third base at all, you're kind of limiting him even more. You're pretty much adding another Darren Ruff in front of him, adding another Daniel Vogelbach in front of him. This said Darren Ruff and this said Vogelbach is JD Martinez, one of the best hitters of the generation. But again, you're blocking out playing time for Vientos. I'm not talking about talent-wise, because we all know that JD Martinez is way better than Daniel Vogelbach or Darren Ruff. While we're at this whole DH discussion, JD Davis was just put on waivers. Mets fans, shut the fuck up. It's not happening. Absolutely not. I get it. You have confusion at third base right now. No. Okay, we're going to still have the same limited playing time as compared to what we had with him earlier in his Mets tenure. It's not happening. Can't hit a fastball. Still can't hit one. He's not going to do it.
He's a better backup than Joey Wendell.
He is a better backup than Joey Wendell, but Joey Wendell is a backup. He's an actual bench player. And
he could actually use his glove to
He's
do something
also an
productive.
all-star too, and
Yeah, he's an
JD
all-star,
wasn't.
What if Brett Beatty struggles again?
Well, it's time to invest in some steroids for Ronnie Mauricio's leg. Okay, I guess that's how you.